So by the time all of this is done, I look at Brian and I say, Brian, what are we going to do with all of these lemurs? And he, oh, hey, we're on. Oh, yeah. Anyway, so welcome back. This is Adding Style with CSS, and alongside Helen Zhang, I am Christopher Harrison. Now, for those of you who are just tuning in, Helen actually has just gone through a series of amazing demos and put together a pretty good-looking site. And I'm now feeling a little inferior. Like, the pages that I've done up until now have been, really just kind of proof of concept ones. So I at least want to go in and try to gussy things up a little bit and kind of make things look a little bit more real world. And in particular, what I want to do for right now, I'm going to kind of sidestep the module, although we are going to get into transitions, transformations. Those are really important. And I actually want to focus in on one last little feature that we haven't yet discussed and talk about how we can get kind of a very typical style setup for our site. So here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up the little site that I had before, and I still have that width of 75%. I'm going to go back in and fix that here momentarily. But what I did earlier this morning was I set up our little nav section here with our cool little mouse over, and I did all of that. And then I had the article here, and it was relatively long. And for this demo, I've now shrunk that down. And here's what I'd like to do, and I think this is pretty standard, pretty stock, is I would like over here on the left side to have our navigation. And then over here on the right side, what I would like is I would like columns. So that way, some of our text appears over here, and some of our text appears over there. Wouldn't that be nice? Please say yes so I can do my demo.
Yes, and it's very newspaper-like. I mean, when people are reading, or actually when I'm reading, I don't like to read across the entire thing.
Yeah, just down and then down the other side. Absolutely, yeah.
Although when I said that, I felt like I was saying I only read half of sentences because I only read to the middle.
And then you're trying to figure out.
I just don't like to read the entire line,
Exactly. All right, so let's start off by creating this side over here. And one of the things that Helen showed off was that cool little float capability. So what I'm going to do is take advantage of that. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to say nav, and we'll put it in lowercase letters. And I'm actually surprised nobody's asked this, if CSS is case sensitive or not. We almost always get asked that whenever we're doing some form of a language MVA. And the way that I always answer that is treat everything like it's case sensitive. It just makes life a lot easier in the long run. Standard for CSS is to go all lowercase though, just like with HTML5. Okay, in the meantime, so now I'm going to say nav and I'm going to say float, which is spelled like that, float left. Because again, we want it on the left side. And I come back over here, I hit refresh, and you're going to notice that my navigation section is on the left side. That part's good, but everything else is flowing around it, which is the original design of float, and that's not what I want. That I want this to take over that entire left side. This is where that display of inline block comes into play. So now what I can do is I can say display : inline block. There we go. Let's hit save. Let's come back over here. Let's hit refresh. Nothing happens because I also need to do it to the text as well to get that straight line. Yeah. So now let's come back over here and I'm going to say article, and there's my curly braces, and I'm going to say display an inline block. Okay. And now let me come back over here, hit refresh, and now we've got that neat little dividing line. I'd like to kind of push everything over here just a little bit. So I'm just going to extend the margin left, and let's set that to, one rem. There we go. And now let's come back over here. Left, right. There we go. So you remember back to grade school. Of course, I can't do the L on the other hand, but when you're learning letters or learning left and right, see L, see it forms an L. So left, right, and yeah. Anyway, so coming back over here, now you're going to notice that that everything is the way that I want it, and I've got my my little links over here on the left side. Now what I'd like to do is I'd like to divide this up with columns, but I've got a bit of a problem here because I could go in to this article and I could say, all right, well, that looks like it's about half of the text, and that looks like it's about half of the text, and I could go in and set up a brand new section and just put them next to each other using the exact same format that I used a second ago. That would work, but it's not going to work real well when the text changes. Now, what happens if maybe, and let's just come back over here, I go in and I do something like this, that maybe my text magically doubles in size because somebody goes in and copies and pastes. And now I come back over here and I hit refresh, and now you're going to notice that's much bigger. So again, I'm going to have that bit of a problem of how do I create those two columns? And this has been something that we've been wanting for decades now when it comes to HTML, the ability just to say, hey, I want that split up into two columns. Are you ready?
Yeah.
We can now do this with CSS. I'm going to come back to my article, and I'm now going to say column. Now you'll notice, first of all, that I've got column count. So all I'm going to do is just column count, and you'll notice again, let me zoom in on that. There we go. You'll notice that little pair of scissors. That's indicating a snippet to me. So what I'm going to do with that highlighted, column, there we go, is I'm just going to go in and say tab, tab.
Nice.
And so that will automatically give me the vendor specific. And I wanted two columns, so I'm just going to say 2. And I'm just going to hit the down arrow. And poof, everything is now set to 2. So I just come back over here, I hit save, I come back over here, I hit refresh, and now you're going to notice that everything is flowing into 2 columns. Cool.
And you know all the shortcuts. That's impressive. I'm learning so much about Visual Studio from you.
Oh, thank you. I'm a big, big believer in shortcut keys. By the way, where's my VW from before? There it is. I want to go in and get rid of that. Okay. There we go. Okay. And you're also going to notice that there is a lot of other column options as well about whether or not you want to span columns. There's also different rules that you could go in and apply. You can specify the widths. You can put a gap between them and so forth. So you can really go in and kind of get full control over those columns, how the text is going to flow through all of that and so forth. Whoa. Let me just, article, and I want width, and I'm going to say 100 VW. Okay. Why did you work 2 seconds ago, and now all of a sudden you're not working? You're wonderful. Okay, yeah, there we go. There's my little demo. For right now, I'm sure it's one of those little things of I'm sure I'm applying something not quite right. So I'm just going to put it back to that 75% since it was happy with that, and we'll just kind of leave it there. I figured that'll be good at the moment. Yeah.
I mean, it looks fine.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, now, if you remember all the way back to this morning, I know that was a while ago. But if you remember all the way back, one of the big things that we talked about was wanting this separation of concern. So the HTML is designed to say, hey, this is what our text is. So you'll notice, for example, that I've been using that article and I've been using that section. And what's very interesting about article and section is what they don't do. They don't do anything. That the only thing that they do is simply contain text. And then it's up to you to add the style in on your own using CSS. So we want to use CSS for all of our style. That's what CSS is there for. On top of that, one very big thing that we've sort of highlighted a bit of is performance. That up until now, we haven't done a single bit of JavaScript. And bad JavaScript is really what's going to slow your sites down. And so here, very simple little rule here. The fastest JavaScript code is the code you don't write. If you can do it, Deep Thoughts by Christopher Harrison. If you can do it without JavaScript, do it without JavaScript. Okay, well then let's talk about a couple of different things that we might typically do with JavaScript. And one of them is transformations. That let's say, going back to the article that we had a couple seconds ago, that I wanted to change the color of those little links. Or maybe I wanted to put in a little bit of a background on them. But if I put my mouse over it, it's just automatically going to throw that color onto there. It'd be nice to have a little fade effect. And then when I pull my mouse away, have a little fade effect and have that go away again. Wouldn't that be nice?
That sounds beautiful.
It sounds
a little
fantastic.
fade in, fade out.
Yeah. And you're probably thinking, okay, well that's going to be dynamic, right? So that must mean JavaScript. Ah, so we're talking about style. So we can do this with CSS. The other very big thing that you might be looking to do is to resize things. So one of the big things that Helen was showing off before with the media queries was going in and resizing different elements or hiding different elements. What happens if we want to be able to just globally resize something, just make it bigger, make it smaller? Well, fortunately, we can do that as well with our transformations, and that's actually where we're going to start. That our transformations allow us to take items and manipulate them. So if you want to rotate them, if you want to skew them, if you want to resize them, you can do this all through CSS. Now, because of the fact that this is done with CSS, this can be done with any class, with any element, and with any media query. So if all that you need to do is just simply take a particular div block and resize that down, you can do that without having to go into all the different fonts and all the different sizes and calculate everything. You can just simply say, be smaller, and it will be smaller for you. Now, what are some of the different things that we can do? Well, the first thing that we can do is translate. Remember how we've been talking in the past about how it's not always intuitive, some of the names. Translate does mean move.
Yeah.
At least to me, that doesn't scream move.
Yeah. I think once you're out of geometry class for more than a year or so, you forget the whole translate thing, unless you deal with CSS on a regular basis.
Yep. Yeah, we forgot to warn everybody, there's going to be math today. We're going to bring everybody back to geometry class. So anyway, so what translate's going to do is it's going to move an element from one location to another. So if we go back to my slide, I spent hours working on this animation. Barry, I want to make sure that I show this off. Are you ready? Here we go. Ooh. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Nicely translated.
Yes. Yeah, so it actually, moved it to somewhere else on the page. Now, I did the animation mostly just because I wanted to show examples in the slide of each one of these, because I'm not going to demo each one of these. I threw the animations in. I do want to stress, however, it doesn't work like this out of the box. So, sort of like, you're watching some commercial for some toy and it shows it doing something in the little disclaimer down at the very bottom. Toy doesn't actually dance or sing. It doesn't automatically move, but we can, do that. So keep in mind that when you set one of these transformations, it's going to apply to that element right then and there. If you want it to transition, we can do that, but that's going to require a transition, and we'll get to that in a little while here. Scale is going to resize. So you'll notice here my scale, and ooh, it's going to get bigger. See, there we go. Again, these animations spend hours. Rotate. It's going to rotate the element. There we go. And then skew is going to, and I couldn't make this happen very easily, so there it is. It's going to skew it. So you'll notice that my little borders here are off to the side. So those are all the different transformations that you can do. And then you can also do none. And there's my animation for none. That did take the longest. The reason that none exists is it gives you the ability just to disable everything. That one of the things that can happen sometimes with CSS, especially when you start playing around with things like media queries, is something might happen on one media query and then it doesn't automatically get reset later on. So by my going in and saying transformation none, that will turn off all transformations. So if something else had said something, maybe that property was still applying for one reason or another, this allows me just to turn that right off. Okay. So now let's go in and do all of those different translations. Okay, so there's my little page here, and all I want to do is just resize something. And actually, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep it a little bit simpler on myself. I'm just going to say add, and I'm going to say HTML page, and this is going to be my resize demo, and let's just go in and add in a real quick div, and let's give this an ID of resize me, and let's go in and say style, and let's go in and say pound resize me, and I'm going to go in and say height, and let's say 100 pixels, and then let's say width, and let's say 100 pixels. And now I want to resize that. So what I'm going to do is just simply say transform, and you are going to notice that every single browser has it implemented, and there's vendor-specific tags for every single one of them. A lot of browsers, I would even venture to say most browsers, do now support just simply transform, and that is well, that's kind of cool. And that is what I'm going to use here because it will work. Keep in mind, however, that if you just use transform, older browsers may complain. So just kind of keep that in mind. But now what I'm going to do is I'm just simply going to hit my colon, and you'll notice that there's all of the different transformations that I can set up here. And you're going to notice on here that there are a few that I didn't actually get in and mention, in particular in the land of 3D. So if you actually want to flip things in a third dimension, you can do that. And, you know, there's been a lot of talk about images, you know, and kind of dealing with images. One very big thing that you can do is use SVG graphics, the scalable vector. And so you can actually just go in and declaratively say, hey, this is how I want things. And so by using these little transformations, you can draw the flat surface and then flip that and move that backwards and forwards and so forth, all on that third dimensional plane. So you can really get pretty advanced with the different transformations that are available to you. In my case, though, I'm going to go ahead and say translate, and that's going to give me the ability to move this from the left and from the top. So I'm going to say 200 pixels and 200 pixels, and then I'm going to add in a resize, scale rather. There we go. And let's go ahead and scale this. Now the scale is going to be a number-based percentage. So if you want to double it in size, that means you're going to use the number 2 to scale that. And you can actually scale on both the X and the Y axis. And let me actually move this kind of a little bit more center here. So I'm just going to say 400 and 400. There we go. Okay. So let's go in and fire this up. Oh, it would help if I set a background color on that. Otherwise, we're just going to wind up with a white box on a white background. Background, color, and blue. There we go. And
okay.
There we go. All right. No comma. That was where my mistake was. So now what you're going to notice is that it has been moved down, moved over, and you're going to notice that it's been resized. Cool. Now, I know what a lot of you are thinking. A lot of you are probably thinking, okay, that's fine and all, but I don't get it. Why in the world am I going to want to just hard code this into a style and just have it be resized? Well, the first big reason is if you were using media queries. So that way, if I do need to resize something for a media query, that allows me to very easily do that. In fact, here, let's just kind of do this real quick here, is I'm going to add in my media, and I'm going to say min width colon 500 pixels. There we go. And then let's go in and set that up inside of resize me. So resize me. Boop. And boop. And boop, boop. All right. Now, there is my little resize for my min width. So as a result, when it's small, you'll notice small. And then when we get up to big, now you're going to notice that it's bigger. So that's the first big reason why you might decide to use that. The second reason that you might decide to go in and use those little translates is this can oftentimes be an easier way to resize things than trying to do everything with JavaScript. So what I can do is combine this with a bit of JavaScript and then just simply set that style property and add in the transform that way. And I'm actually going to get to that at the very end. I know we haven't done any JavaScript, but I think we'd be remiss if we didn't at least show off a little bit of JavaScript, in particular with jQuery, because so often when you're talking about different jQuery extensions, the way that they're making their magic happen is just by adding and removing classes. So it would be nice to show off kind of how that's done and do that with a little bit of resizing. So we'll get to that in a couple of minutes. Okay. Now, that's how we can go in and resize something and move something. How about making something happen over time? You know, so when I go in and I mouse over something, rather than it just instantly resizing or instantly changing the background color, how about a little bit of easing into it and a little bit of easing out? And you know, it's funny, and I really should go track down this study again. I read this years ago, that what they did was they took the exact same application. So it did the exact same thing, and it had the exact same bugs. But they changed the UI on one of them. So one of them was a very simplistic UI, and then the other one was a very nice, rich UI. And then they gave them to different users, and they asked them to kind of report their overall feelings and bugs and so forth. And what they found was people reported a lot more bugs on the lesser UI than they did on the fancier UI. Because if you see a fancier UI, you're going to look at that and you're going to go, oh, okay, well, they've obviously spent a lot of time with this. So, you know, that little bug that just came up, that must be me. I must have done something wrong there. And I know it sounds sort of silly, but it's true that, you know, perception is reality. How your users perceive your site, perceive your application is a very important component to the success of it. So those little touches do go a long way, and CSS makes it so easy to add all of those in, and it's going to be done by utilizing transitions. So let's talk about how to add in a transition. Well, what you're going to notice is that if I want to transition, if I want to add on that bit of animation, all that I really need to do is just simply say, hey, I want to add a transition to that property, and I want it to take that long. That's it. So I can still go in and set the exact same key value property. So I can still say background color colon yellow, or I can still say size colon and then whatever it is. So I can still go in and do all of that just like I would with normal CSS. And then I just come down here and I say, all right, well, I want to apply that transition to that size property or to that color property or whatever else it is that it might be. And then on the duration, this is just simply how long I want it to take. That's really it. Now, the delay allows you to just incorporate a little bit of a delay. Just hold off before you go in and make that little change. And then finally, last but not least, is the timing function. And that's going to impact how it's going to kind of start, go in the middle, and then finish. So if I choose linear, it's going to go that same speed throughout. If I go ease, it's going to go slow to start, faster in the middle, and then slow to end. And then if I go ease out or ease in, it's going to just go slower at the end or at the beginning, respectively. Now, those are the 4 options that you're typically going to go for. If you're really feeling like you want a lot more control, you can actually go in and explicitly code how you want things to take place. Again, I've got better things to do with my time. Maybe that is something that you want to go in and do. I generally find that the built-in options actually work just fine for me. Okay, so with that, let's go in and take a look at how we could take advantage of that. And so let's come back to our article here. And on the hover, let's go in and set my background color. And I'm going to set this to be yellow. I'm going to start with yellow and just kind of see how I like it. There we go. All right. All right. Yeah, yellow will work. Okay. And I am going to make this a little bit bigger. Zoom, 150. There we go. Okay. So I like my little yellow. But you'll notice that the moment I put my mouse over it, it's just boom, now it's yellow and that's it. So I would like a little bit of an ease into that. So here's all I have to do. This is it. No JavaScript required. Is I just sneak down here and I just simply say transition. Now again, you are going to notice it's a code snippet, and you are going to notice again when I go tab that it's going to add in for every single browser there. So I've got all of those really with the exception of Internet Explorer. I'm going to make my life easier, and I'm just going to go with transition, which again will work on most browsers, but if you are wanting full support, you should go with with all the rest of them. I don't think we need to see the same property 5 times though. Yeah. Okay. So let's go back in, and I'm going to say transition, and I'm going to say transition property. Let's start here, and I'm just going to say color, or background color. There we go. Perfect. So now I'm saying I want to transition on background color. So the underline will still appear right away. My background color is the one that's now going to have the animation applied to it. If I also want an underline, then I could also go in and say underline as well. In my case, though, I just want background color. All right. And now let's go in and say transition duration. And let's say, I don't know, about 200 milliseconds. That'll probably work.
Yeah, that's a little fast, but I mean, I don't know. Yeah.
You like 500?
That sounds good. Half a second. I could see that. I have really slow reaction time, so I like the longer delays.
Okay, perfect. And let's also add in a little bit of a transition delay. And I'm just going to set that to be 10 milliseconds. And really, all that I'm looking to do there, it's so funny, my brain is just hard-coded. I'm in CSS, I typed in a number, it must be pixels, yes. So in any event, what that's really there for is that way if somebody's just simply moving their mouse around, that it's not always going to do that. Because if somebody's just going like this, there's no reason for me to get all fancy with the animations there.
Oh, you don't want it to create a nice little rainbow?
I suppose you could. All right, so we'll add that in, and then last but not least is going to be our timing function, and let's just go in with an ease in. There we go. Cool. So now I hit save. I come back over here. I hit refresh. Ooh.
Do it again. Yeah. Good transition.
Yeah. Now, I am going to make this obnoxiously long here. I'm going to make this 5 seconds. And the reason that I want to do that is just because it's going to work a little bit better for demo purposes. And you'll notice that slowly but surely, it is in fact coming into yellow. All right. I would probably not recommend going 5 seconds there. Now, here's the problem that I have, is you're going to notice that if I just pull the mouse away, it goes right back to a white background again. And if you're anything like me, and I know I am, that sort of leaves a little bit of a hollow feeling there because we had this really nice animation coming in. It'd be nice if we had that animation going back out again. This is the only slightly bad part, I guess, is you are going to notice I'm just going to need to take this, copy, and then just paste that back into there. So let's just go in, let's paste that back in, and on the transition out, we should probably go the other direction, which is to say that we should probably go slower on the out. So I'm just going to go in and I'm going to say out. So now I'm going to save that, and I'm going to come back over here, and I'm going to hit refresh. And now what you're going to notice is I put my mouse back over, it's slowly going to go into yellow, and then I pull the mouse away, and you're going to notice that it's going to slowly go back to white. And what I really love about this is if I do this, so I put my mouse over, it's coming yellow, 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 and I pull my mouse away, so it didn't get to full yellow, you'll notice that it just picks up right where it was, and then starts going back down again. Cool.
Very cool.
Now, I copied and pasted. Pop quiz. Forgot to warn you there was going to be a pop quiz. CSS stands for what again?
Cascading style sheets.
Cascading style sheets. So these properties cascade. So it's right there in the name, cascade. So an anchor tag is also an anchor hover tag, right?
Yes.
Cool. So that would mean that if I took away that, and that should inherit from up here, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So let's go ahead, let's hit save, let's come back over here, hit refresh, and now you're going to notice, sure enough, it's coming in, and you'll notice that when I take my mouse away, it's also going out. Because the only thing that was different about how I wanted to do that fade in and fade out was just simply what I wanted to have happen at the end and at the beginning for my regular and for my hover respectively. So I just changed that one property and I let the other ones inherit. So at the end of the day, this is still just CSS.
That's great. There's a question, and I think it's a pretty good one. What happens, or can you set different transitions for the same element, like different transition properties?
Absolutely. Yeah, so what you could also do is, let's say that I also went with, I'm trying to think of something else.
I think the underline was a good one.
Yeah, okay, so let's go with text decoration. There we go. So you'll notice that I could actually add in text decoration as well. So let me go in, save that. Let's go ahead, hit refresh. And yeah, unfortunately, I don't get a transition on underline. What do I want to do?
Text color or font color?
Yeah, there we go. Sure, we'll just go with color. So let's come down here, color, colon, and let's go with black. And there we go. Let's go with black color. Cool. Okay, that'll work. Now let's come back over here. Let me hit refresh. And now what you're going to notice is that again over that 5 seconds, it's now going to fade from blue to black, and then you'll notice back again. So you can add in multiple. What I would also say is you can set different values for the duration, for the delay, and for the timing function as well. So if I want the color to maybe be a bit faster, so let's say that I want that to be maybe at 200 milliseconds. So I want that to be real fast. And I'm going to do this with red, just because I think that's going to pop a little bit better here. Then I could go in and set my 2 different sizes. So that 500 milliseconds is going to be for the background color. That 200 milliseconds is going to be for the foreground color or color. Let me go in, hit refresh, and now you're going to notice that it's basically instant. Whoa, no, it's not applying my animation.
There.
Well, no, it's not giving me the different values. Why are you not giving me the different values? I might need a vendor tag on that, because it is possible. It is possible for me to go in and set those different speeds. It might just be that I need a different vendor tag. Yeah, because it's just ignoring it if I do it that way. But in any event, you can go in and apply that to multiple properties, which was really the question there.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's kind of keep on keeping on here. And let me bring up another little example that I was kind of building in the background here. Kind of a simple little form. So please register, and there's our little name, our little email, and then our little submit button down at the very bottom. And that's right now a div tag. I want that to be like a button.
Yes.
So I want to not make the text selectable. I also want to make it so that when you click on it, that it will resize. So maybe kind of condense down just a little bit like you've actually clicked on it. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah, that would be nifty.
That would be nifty. Fantastic. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start off by getting rid of the text selection capabilities. So if I, inside of my demo button, just type in the word select, you'll notice that there is a user select here. So I can say user select, and then inside of here, I can say none. Come back over here, hit refresh, and now what you're going to notice is I need my browser-specific user select. There we go, and I want none. There we go. Okay, hit refresh. And now you'll notice I'm trying to select, and I can't. That was cool.
Yeah.
Very easy. Now, the other thing that I'd like to do is I'd like to get rid of that little bar cursor there, and I'd like to change the cursor to be, maybe the crosshair, because it's a button, so you're, focused in on it. It's going to be a crosshair. That's what I'm going to go with. All right. In any event, let's come back over here, hit refresh, and now what you're going to notice is I get that neat little crosshair, so I can go in and try to click on that. Now, you'll notice I was able to do all of that with CSS. And again, moral of the entire day is if we can do it with CSS, let's do it with CSS. CSS, unfortunately, doesn't have things like mouse down or mouse up states. So I'm going to need a little bit of JavaScript. But one of the great things about JavaScript, and in particular I want to focus in on jQuery, because jQuery makes this very easy, is the ability for me to add and remove classes. And the vast majority of all the different animations and so forth that you see are all based on the addition and removal of classes. That's really it. So let's just create a class, and let's just call it shrink. And let's just go in and say transform. And I'm going to say, in my case, scale. And let's say 0.5 and 0.5. And I'm making that kind of really small there, but yeah. I'm just trying to prove the point. And then let's go in and say dot grow. And let's go in and say transform. And let's say none. So we'll just get rid of the transformation. And now what I want to do is I just want to, for right now, on my little button, let's start it out with class equals, I'm going to call it default, just because I think that's a better name in the long run, rather than grow, because I'm just setting it back to the default, don't you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
Setting it to grow would make me think that it's growing.
Yeah, it's going to get bigger, not that it's just going back to the original size. Okay, so now let's sneak down here and let's add in a little bit of jQuery here. There we go. And for those of you not familiar with jQuery, we actually, again, have an MVA on jQuery. But what jQuery does is it makes it easier through JavaScript to do all of those different things that we sort of take for granted in typical development. So adding on things like click event handlers and so forth is very easy to do in Windows development, but it's not always as easy as one would hope in JavaScript. So jQuery makes it easier to do things like that. It also does a lot more, but I think that's the easiest way to describe it.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is just simply say script. I'm going to use the shortcut for onload. So once the document loads, it's going to run this function, and I'm going to go find my demo button. Why did I camel case that? And then I'm going to say, let's say mouse down. And then on mouse down, I'm going to add in a brand new function. And on that function, I'm just going to grab the button by doing this, dot, and then we'll just simply say toggle class. And let's go in and say default and toggle class. And then let's say shrink. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I honestly would do it that way normally, but I want to kind of make it a little bit more explicit, just kind of call it out here. So let's say remove class default. There we go. And then let's say dollar this, and let's say add class and shrink. There we go. And then let's also just do the opposite.
I think you might need the ID selector for demo button.
Ah, thank you. I always do that.
Yeah.
That is the #1 mistake that I wind up making inside of jQuery. And then I want mouse up. There we go. Okay. And cool. There we go. So I'm just swapping those classes. Okay. So now let's go in and hit save. Let's come back over here, hit refresh, and you're going to notice mouse down, it shrinks. Mouse up, it comes back.
Very nice.
It is. Wouldn't it be nice if it eased into that and eased back out?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, fortunately, again, CSS, the C stands for
Cascading.
so I can set that property here on the button itself. So regardless of where it's going to get the transition properties applied, it will always work. So I'm just simply going to say transition duration, and let's go in and say maybe 500 milliseconds. Let's say transition property, and that's going to be transform. Now, transform is just like any other CSS property. So I can use it in media queries, I can use it in classes, I can use it in IDs. Can I use it with transition properties? Yes, because it's just a CSS property. Cool. And then I could also set my transition timing function, and then let's just go with an ease, which is going to ease in and ease out both. Okay, so now let's come back over here, let's hit refresh, and now what you're going to notice, ooh, and then release. Ooh.
Very nice.
Yeah, so just like that, I was able to build all of that, and I really should add in a mouse out as well, so that way if somebody does that and then pulls their mouse away, it will come back out, but that's okay. You start to see where all of this is going. And what I want to highlight about all of this is the fact that you might look at this, and you might think, well, wait a minute. I'm going to add in some interactivity based on a click, based on a mouse down and a mouse up. And so you might be thinking, okay, that should then be in JavaScript, because after all, that's typically where things like this go, right? It goes in JavaScript. Well, here's the thing. What are we trying to do? What's the actual end goal? Well, the end goal, the effect that that mouse down and mouse up is going to have is going to be on the display. It's going to be on the style. And what should be in charge of style?
The style sheets, the CSS.
There you go, the style sheet, the CSS. So you'll notice that we built everything else into CSS. So how big should it be? How small should it be? All of that was built inside of CSS. And where that also becomes very important is when we start talking about things like, once again, media queries and different types of devices. So I might decide for a desktop that that type of a shrink behavior is exactly what I want, but I might decide for a mobile device that maybe that's not what I want. So maybe what I do, and I'm not going to go in and do the full thing here, I just want you to kind of see the point, that maybe what I do is I say media, and I say max width, and let's say, oh, I don't know, 500 pixels, whatever. So let's go in and say that I did that. I really should get a colon into there. There we go. So let's say I go in and I do 500 pixels, then what I could do is I could say dot shrink, dot default, and then just completely turn off any transformations. And I can do that right there inside the style sheet. No logic required inside of JavaScript. And that again goes back to separation of concern. Let CSS worry about how things are going to be displayed. Let JavaScript worry about things like logic and wiring up the event handlers. So now, one little bit right there, no JavaScript required. This is now automatically going to disable that little animation on any smaller device. So very simple for me to go in and add that in.
That's great. Yeah, very
Excellent.
useful.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. All right, in any event, so here's what we saw in that module. What we saw in that module is, once again, how we can take CSS and really kick things up. And CSS is all about handling the display. This is what we want to use. So hopefully the biggest thing that you got out of this was not a desire to go running for JavaScript every time that you want to add in something cool. Let the CSS handle the display for you. Let the HTML handle the semantic structure, and let JavaScript do your business logic. All right. What do you say we take 10 minutes, come back, and not talk about CSS? I mean, we'll talk about CSS, but let's talk about preprocessors and how hopefully we can try to clean up our CSS a bit, because obviously it can get very big.
Yeah.
All right. So let's take 10, and we'll see you guys back here then.